Thank you very much.
Senator from New Jersey.
Thank you. Madam President, I rise today in opposition to the nomination of Kenneth Marcus to serve as the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the Department of Education. One of the most critical functions of the Department of Education is the role in enforcing federal civil rights and uphold the protection of students' civil rights in schools. And the Office of Civil Rights within the Department of Education is a particularly important instrument in enforcing civil rights in schools, protecting those precious rights of our children, ensuring that schools provide students with access to equal educational opportunities and a non-discriminatory environment in which to learn. It's this idea we have in our country that's fundamental, that we have a level playing field and abundant opportunity for all kids, no matter what their background. The continued need for this office is clear. In fact, during the Obama administration, the Office for Civil Rights in the Department of Education handled 76,000 complaints over 8 years and issued dozens of policy guidance documents to help schools better protect and preserve civil rights of students. But in the last year alone, a year and a half, we've seen what is really clearly an abdication of this leadership in the Trump administration, and what that has meant for the protection of civil rights for our country's children, for our country's students. We've seen the Office of Civil Rights that has rolled back protections for LGBTQ students, an office that has rolled back protections for students with disabilities, and an office that is set on gutting the very mission of the office itself, to protect all of our students from discrimination and empower them with equal opportunities to succeed. And the confirmation of Kenneth Marcus would be another blow to the civil rights of our students. Mr. Marcus is someone who, in his record and in his testimony to my colleagues on the Senate Help Committee, has demonstrated that he possesses, at best, a disturbing apathy and, at worst, a wanton disregard to the importance, if not urgency, of protecting the rights of our kids in school. When Mr. Marcus was asked by Senator Murphy to name an example of something, anything, Donald Trump has said or done when it comes to discrimination or civil rights that he disagrees with, Mr. Marcus could not name any area of disagreement. He couldn't find a single disagreement in the way that Donald Trump demeaned Americans with disabilities, or how the president has spoken about Mexicans, or even the way the president has issued policies that attack the rights of Muslims or the rights of LGBTQ Americans. There was no disagreement mentioned whatsoever. And when he was asked during his confirmation hearing if, as Assistant Secretary, he would intervene in an instance where black students in a school district were receiving lower quality teachers, fewer books, fewer AP classes, and fewer educational resources than white students, one would expect his answer to have been, yes, I would intervene. Yes, I would stand up for equality. But instead, Mr. Marcus refused to say that he would step in such a hypothetical circumstances. And when Senator Murphy asked about disparities in school districts that were suspending or expelling 5 times as many black students for the same set of behaviors compared to white students, instead of just saying the obvious thing, that this is wrong, the same behavior necessitates the same disciplinary action, instead of saying something simple as that, Mr. Marcus went on to say this: I believe that the disparities of that size are grounds for concern, but my experience says that one needs to approach each complaint and compliance for review with an open mind and a sense of fairness to find out what the answers are. I will tell you that I've seen what appears to be inexcusable disparities that were the result of paperwork errors that just got the numbers wrong. I don't know on this issue of disciplinary inequality in America, I don't know how much of the data Mr. Marcus has seen, but it is abundantly clear for someone who wants to be in this position that they should understand the crisis we have with discipline in this country. The data from all factors, nonpartisan groups, have shown that even in preschool, the age of 4 years old, black preschool kids are 3.6 times more likely to receive and out-of-school suspension than white preschool kids. Again, also for the same infractions. This is not about getting the numbers wrong. This is about being aware of a problem we have in this country that fuels the school-to-prison pipeline. A problem that is so severe that I fought in a bipartisan way to get an amendment about school expulsions in the Every Student Exceeds Act. This is a problem that's so severe that in 2014, the Department of Education issued guidance clarifying that schools must administer discipline without discrimination on the basis of race, color, or national origin. The guidance provided important information and support for schools to create a safer, more inclusive environment. But we know this problem is not going away because just last month, a new report from the Government Accountability Office concluded that Black students, boys, and students with disabilities were still significantly overrepresented in disciplinary action. What we need is a Department of Defense that is going to, what we need is a Department of Education that's going to stand up for kids on problems that we know exist. I was stunned that this is a candidate that doesn't even acknowledge the urgency in protecting LGBTQ kids. Even Secretary Betsy DeVos called discrimination against LGBTQ students in schools an issue for, and I quote, Congress and the courts to settle. I don't understand when you have children that are literally under attack. We face a crisis in this country when it comes to LGBTQ youth. This is not an argument over facts. The facts are clear. LGBT youth face a stunning level of prejudice and discrimination inside and outside of schools starting at a young age. We know that LGBT youth are twice as likely, 2 times more likely than their heterosexual peers to be physically assaulted in school. LGBT youth are 4 times as likely to attempt suicide. And according to the Youth Risk Behavior Survey, 34% of gay and lesbian youth students were bullied on school property, and 13% report not going to school because of fear for their safety. This kind of harassment has no place in our classrooms, our schools, or anywhere in the United States. It is far too common, whether from discriminating disciplinary practice to physical violence against our kids, that we have work to do in this country to keep all children safe, to treat all children equally, to give every kid a fair shot in schools to make it and thrive. And yet we are trying to elevate someone to one of the more significant positions in our land to protect children who has a disregard and an apathy towards the compelling and continuing problems in our schools. When I think about the role of federal government in protecting children, I think about a picture that as soon as I walk out of my office, the picture's there. It's that picture from Norman Rockwell of Ruby Bridges trying to walk to school at the age of 6 to become the first Black child to attend a white elementary school in the South. The photo of her, of this famous painting, is just, it's jarring when you see it. It's a reminder to me every day when I leave my office about the roles and responsibilities we have in this body. The hate that is being spewed on her, Ruby Bridges, was plainly evident. And I'm telling you, if you visit schools right now and talk to some of our children who are being bullied, intimidated, they can speak to that kind of hate as well. You can still feel the pain and hatred echoing from our past, and you can see it echoing in our present. But she was determined. And most importantly, she was not alone. At the age of 6, walking to school, Ruby Bridges walked not alone, but as Norman Rockwell's picture captures, she walked with federal marshals that stood with her. She was not alone. She had government folks who said, your rights are my rights. Your future is my future. That we pledge an oath to be a nation of liberty and justice, not for some, but for all. that injustice anywhere, as King said, is a threat to justice everywhere. And so look, the federal government alone is not enough to educate our kids. It's about local communities that keep them safe. It's about those soccer coaches. It's about the drama teacher. It's about the English teacher. It's about the love and the kindness and the nurturing environments that is the common standard in all of our schools in America, in every state. But we've seen from history that there is a role for us to play in keeping folks safe, that there are aberrations in our country where hatred still thrives, where discrimination still exists, where there's a role for us to play, and we can't surrender that role. We can't retreat from our vigilance in protecting every child in America. And that's why the Office of Civil Rights in the Department of Education is so critical and must be led by someone who understands our history and understands the urgent work that still needs to be done. We need a person in this role that's committed to every single child, no matter who they are, and sees within that child their truth, their divinity, their limitless potential, their promise, and on how we as a nation need them to succeed. We have a long way to go. There's work still to do. Children in this country who are hurting now need champions in positions of high office. That's why I oppose the nomination of Mr. Marcus. He is not the person, by his own testimony, that sees our children, that will protect all of our children, that understands their crisis and hears their cries. I will be voting against his nomination. Thank you, and I yield the floor.